Hey, and welcome to a test podcast, I guess we can call it, uh, in the new studio. Congratulations to me. Yay. Um, Finally have everything set up, I think. The only thing I'm missing is the logo in the back. I'm not sure about that yet. And what else? Oh, live calls. That is the other thing, but I'm not sure we need that right now. If you have followed me on or watched a previous podcast, you will remember me saying that the Hillary Clinton campaign is has pulled out the old playbook and is just reusing the playbook they used against candidate Obama is the same playbook that they're using against Sanders, whether it is the new incarnation of Bernie Bros is the new incarnation of their version of Obama's male supporters, always claiming that they were sexist and all these other things that if you're a Sanders supporter, I know that you have probably been accused of. Um, they have claimed he's out of touch. They have dismissed uh, his um, his work for civil rights and civil liberties. He's an old man. He's irrelevant. And yesterday, oh, so yeah, so it's the same old playbook. And it's funny when you just stumble to uh, to something like that, right? I'm sure by now. I mean, there's so much that's been going on, right? In the past that I've had since I was on last, but I'm sure you have already heard about the Greenpeace activist that asked Hillary Clinton a question at a rope line, I guess, one of those situations where the candidate interacts with the voters and they get close. And if you're lucky enough to be there and be up front, you get to ask a question. And uh, so, so, well, let's hear it. The audio is a little hard, and I'm obviously testing out to see if this works. So let me just play that, right? Okay, so um, first of all, I love the fact that she jumps right in and makes the assumption that it's a Bernie Sanders supporter. I love that, which it was not. Apparently, they're a group of people. They're all over the place, and uh, and they're trying to get in front of the candidate. Apparently, she'd been in line for hours and hours and hours to be up front and to have this opportunity, and uh, and Hillary Clinton immediately launches into an attack, and being intellectually dishonest. And the reason she's been being intellectually dishonest is because, and here's the kicker, uh, this one popped up on the net being played. And I'm sure if you're a political geek, you'll remember it. But if not, enjoy. So, what is it? What do we normally say? What's good for the goose? What? Say what? Say what? Um, that I mean, I love that shit, right? I just love that. And obviously, she has taken a ton of money uh, from lobbyists. She's also taking money from lobbyists from the NRA. So let's yeah, whatever. But yes, Hillary Clinton running the 2008 playbook campaign, and she certainly does not like to be reminded uh, of you know doing the exact same things that she was complaining that then candidate Obama did. Funny stuff. Funny stuff. Um, the other thing that I want to talk about is the let me say the again the the interview that Bernie Sanders did with the New York Daily News. Um, First of all, did I? I can't remember. Started out the podcast. Did I say that he beat Hillary Clinton yesterday by? He was supposed to do by 6 point minimum, right? He did it by 13 points. 13 points. 13 points, right? I am very, very, very sure that CNN and MSNBC have been busy not talking about the win or in some way talking about how it doesn't matter, the math doesn't matter, he can't make it. Uh, you know, I'm I'm sure it's been I've been busy all day, so I've had no time to watch the news today. But I am sure it's been the same formula as it has been almost from the beginning on the two channels, CNN and MSNBC, and that is that they have some Bernie supporter on, and then they have six people on, two Hillary supporters, outright supporters, and then uh, uh, three people that are on as experts, but that we all know are Hillary supporters. So Bernie Sanders has this interview with the New York Daily News, and as I wake up to this, uh, the, the mouthpieces for the opponents of Sanders was out there, and that includes the Daily News, by the way, but was out there and was screaming to high heaven that Sanders somehow fumbled the question on how he would break up the banks, and and there was some gloating going on. I kind of saw an interview this morning with Hillary Clinton and Cuomo, and I wanted to do a comment on it, but like I said, I've been super busy all day. But the usual, Hillary Clinton was basically coming out and saying that he fumbled. So that was the narrative that they were trying uh, to 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 build, right? That Sanders Sanders key um, thing that he wants to do, which is break up the banks. Uh, he was asked a question and he, d- didn't didn't answer it or fumbled it, right? And that's of course not true. That's of course not what happened. Um, and that whole narrative that they try to make uh, uh, kind of misses to me. I think the two bigger points in that interview. Uh, One is that Sanders uh, in New York uh, with the Daily News in the part that he's asked about Israel uh, is clear and and very very clear. And by the way, at that point, during the interview, and you really should go read it or watch it. I did not watch it. I read it, so I'm not sure uh, about the attitude so much by the questionnaire, but the questions read super antagonistic and super and made in such a way that it's making um, trying to make Bernie Sanders somehow anti-Semitic, right? Which is, as we all know, kind of funny. Um, uh, it's a super long interview, and as I said, at best you can describe it as the interviewer as kind of antagonistic, uh, certainly unfriendly to Sanders. Um, Kind of in a way, especially when we get to or when they get, not when we, but when they get to the part of Israel, it to me the questions are so. Um, I mean, I'll get into it, uh, but it made me wonder. I was like, who the hell owns uh, uh, the newspaper? And it turns out that it's Mortimer Sugarman, and he's a Democrat. He's been around for a while. He's an investor. He owns a couple of newspapers. I did not know that he owned this, so shame on me for not knowing that. But I didn't. But certainly um, when I saw that he was the owner, the way that the questions were asked of Bernie Sanders made a lot more sense to me. He is basically because he's from New York uh, or lives in New York. He is a classier Adelson, right? Adelson, the casino owner out of Vegas, hence not the class, no class. Um, but the same kind of live and die by the sword for Israel kind of support, right? Certainly on that, I don't think there's any daylight, excuse me, I don't think that there's any daylight between Bernie Sand, Adelson and Sugarman. Zuckerman, 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 soccer, Zuckerman. So I don't. So hey, I said it was a test podcast, right? So lay off, relax, right? So I'm not. I'm not. There's no daylight when it comes to that. So that whole thing makes sense, right? And let's remember, he is also one of the early supporters of candidate Obama, but then he sours on him um, because, amongst a couple of things, but he's not happy with the way um, the stimulus package was put together. Uh, I'm not sure if he disagreed on the size with the president, but I do know he's quoted as saying, but if you look at the makeup of the stimulus program, roughly half of it went to state and local municipalities, which is in effect to the municipality union, which are the core of the Democratic Party. Um, well, so what he's basically against is that a Labor Party is helping out Labor. Eh, you know, that's why you can't invite people with $2.5 billion in assets. I don't know if it's in cash, probably not, but he's worth about $2.5 billion, right? So either way, so he disagrees with Obama on the stimulus package because he claims it's a payoff to the unions. I don't know how you could think the unions were treated well during Obama. Um, and he is also against the healthcare uh, bill. Um, he claims that nobody wanted to extend coverage to anybody, meaning that we're all fucking selfish, and we don't want our fellow American citizens to enjoy health care and a healthy life and not be afraid of getting sick or falling down, breaking a leg, or anything like that. For God forbid, we should all like have access to a doctor when we don't feel good. It should only be people like Mr. Suckerman, right? Either way, he was against that, and he kind of he blames the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, on ego. That Obama pushed it through because of ego. I mean, that's not what he says, but he says something to akin to that uh, that many, because he won't say it himself that he's saying it, so he wipes it off on other people. Maybe doing it because he wants to be a transformational president, but I want to get my cost down. And by I, he means the American people, not him, right? So that's an important caveat, especially if you go watch or hear the interview. It's the same, but it does give context to the questions, right? So if he's to the right of Obama, right, then obviously Sanders must look to him like the Red Devil, right? So that um, again accounts for the tone in the in the questions, or in the way that they're trying to set him up, try to set Sanders up. They try to set him up, try to get him into direct uh, fight personal attacks with Hillary Clinton, and yeah, so that's and you also get a really good you get a good idea of where they're coming from as a newspaper by the um, first question, right? It's that I built that attitude kind of question. They say, you said that the greed of Wall Street and corporate America is destroying the fabric of our nation. So if we can get particular, for example, in corporate America, Apple happens to be celebrating today its 40th birthday. Well, congratulations, Apple. Happy that you're turning 40. I can't believe you're only 40 years old. Inside joke. Um, it's a company that grew from nothing to 115,000 permanent employees. And I'm wondering, is Apple destroying the fabric of America? Now, Apple didn't grow from nothing. Steve Jobs did not invent every technology that he had in his first computer or his first Apple product. He just did not. He's standing on the shoulders of massive, massive um, government um, spending, massive government investment in research, uh, the massive, or not massive, but the investment that we all have done in the education from kindergarten all the way up through our universities, public and private, because they all receive money from our collective purse, right? So um, that kind of sets the tone. That's where they come. They're coming from that. I built that. You know, it's the job creators kind of attitude, right? You know, but internet, the space program, you know, all the research that does not create a product that can be brought to market in a quick enough time to satisfy Wall Street investors, that research has to be done somewhere. It's one of the reasons that America is falling behind, because we're not doing that so much anymore, right? Because the pressure is on from Wall Street. Here's another reason why Wall Street is bad for America. There's pressure on corporations to constantly bring new products to market, because that's what Wall Street needs to keep their wheels turning and them constantly making a profit. So nobody is playing long ball anymore, right? And that is destructive to our country. I wish that Bernie Sanders would come up and say, when I'm president, corporations will only be required to report their finances. Shit, biannual. I don't care. Some research, it could be different for different corporations. I'm fine with flexible, but something, right? Certainly, we do not need bio companies and other companies that are that we need to do the long term research, the deep research that brings us to the next level. I apologize for a short little break. My dog just had surgery. Sorry, so I have to be a little open here with the doors and whatever. Where was I at? So all that long ball needs to be put back into the American society, and I think that Bernie Sanders is the man to do that. And that's not happening anyway. So anyway, the uh, the the interview then goes on, and uh, then comes the question that apparently sunk, destroyed the Sanders campaign, because oh my God, he could not answer this question. He doesn't know how to break up the banks. Um, I'm talk a little bit about it, but that's obviously not true. He more than answers the question. But so the question is now switching to the financial sector, to Wall Street. Speaking broadly, you said that within the first 100 days of your administration, you'd be drawing up, your Treasury Department would be drawing up a too big to fail list. Would you expect that essentially the list that already exists under the Dodd-Frank uh, question mark, under the Financial Stability Oversight Council, right? Sanders, yeah, I mean, there are the largest financial institutions in the world, and they then go on. And then you further said that you expect to break them up within the first year of your administration. What authority do you have to do that? And how would that work? How would you break up JP Morgan Chase? Now, I believe he answers the question. I mean, you can go You can go look at it yourself and you can go read it. I believe he answers the question, you know, uh, as good as he can. There's two things about this, right? Uh, what do you guys, or what does, not you guys, but because you're all smart if you're watching this, right? But what does people, what do people believe the presidents do? Are there really people in America that believe that the president comes in, President Obama, the Affordable Care Act, President Obama comes in, he sits down, he writes every little paragraph of every little law, and he does all of that? Or could it possibly be that he says, "Hey, I want to do that. How can I do that? I have some ideas, you have some ideas. How can we do that? Figure it out. Give me some options, and I'll pick one." Judgment, right? That's where it comes in. Judgment, right? You have to have that's what you need on a president, right? You need a president that has excellent judgment, which Bernie Sanders seemed to have had, right? You would also like a president that you know that when you vote for them, you actually know that that what they said to you during their campaign was not just them trying to pump sunshine up your ass to get your vote, right? So, um, uh, and Sanders, seems to fit that bill. I think that's called integrity, right? Um, so he goes on with that. The other problem I have with the whole, well, with the question, and the journalist seems to be very, they seem to have done their homework in the way that they pressure Sanders on the question. How is he? Because what they want to know is how do you unravel them? And here's why the question in itself bothers me, because, and I'm certainly not an expert on any of this, but I was pretty sure that we were told that Dodd-Frank took care of that, right? I'm pretty sure that we were all told that the reason that we had to bail out the banks, uh, the biggest reason was that there were no, uh, 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 there was not a vehicle, not a way uh, to take over the banks, which is of course bullshit. But we bought that, or the greater. Uh, I don't know if we bought it, but whatever. That was their argument, right? Um, and that Dodd Frank would fix that. Well, if there's not, if there, if so, if we now have banks that are larger than before the economic crisis, and we're now finding out through this interview that there is not a direct way. Go in, look, hey, yes, if you fail, that will have systemic risks to the entire country, and therefore we must break you up. Um, the fact that, so one of the things that they don't like is that Bernie Sanders is pretty free market about that, right? He's like, that's not my job. I'm not breaking them up. That's up to them. How, we're going to basically, he's saying, we're going to come out with the guidelines. You can be this big and you are allowed to do these things. I'm assuming they're going to go back to some version of the Glass-Steagall Act. So you can only be an insurance company, and you can only be an investment bank, and you can only be a mom and pop bank or whatever, a savings bank, right? I'm thinking they're going to go back to something, right? And then they're going to be allowed to have a certain size. Why should the government structure that if we're doing it before they crash? But according to the Daily News or whatever the hell, and a little bit on Sanders' answers with Sanders, the way that Sanders answered their question, damn, uh, I I'm concerned that there's actually not a way, a tool, a vehicle to go in preemptively and break up the banks. And if there's not one to do it preemptively, then what is there? Is there even a tool to make sure that the taxpayer will not be held hostage again the next time they crash? I don't know. It, by the answer, it seems to me that there was none, right? But that was like Geithner walked around, how he saved the economy, and he talked about there's no other way to get it done. Uh, they didn't have the tools, He said that, in his book, uh, to take care of it. But now it seems like there is no way for us not to be held hostage again. Seems to me to be an even bigger argument to have a president in the White House that is willing to take the beating so that we take the pain that may be necessary the next time Wall Street crashes. And hopefully, we have a president in the White House that says no when Wall Street puts the financial gun to the head of the president. I want a president in there that will say no and that is willing to take the beating because he's willing to make sure that we take the medicine now so that we never have to do it again. So, but seems to me that he, you know, uh, 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 um, yeah, I mean, the Daily News in their question says, but do you think that the Fed now has the authority, right? And we're assuming they're not just asking the question because, I mean, I'm sure they're good enough to know that if Bernie Sanders said, yes, of course they do, and they didn't, then they would know. And Bernie Sanders didn't say that, right? Bernie Sanders didn't answer uh, that, right? And then I have to say, you know, love Bernie, love me some Bernie, but I'm disappointed, right? Because um, he's also asked um, whether or not he thought that um, whether or not Attorney General Holder was in the tank, because um, nobody, nobody went to jail. Nobody was prosecuted. Now, Bernie Sanders is, way too kind a man to say it. So I'll say it for him. Yes, Eric Holder was totally in the tank for Wall Street. I don't give a shit what you say, and you can get as mad as you want to do. I worked in the mortgage industry during the boom. I was witness to the way the loans were constructed and to how the agents from the banks came in and bought the mortgages that we created. So stop. And that thing came on top down. It wasn't like a mortgage company saying, hey, I could figure out how to get more loans through this way. You can just do it like that. They're not going to catch it. And then let me go tell every other mortgage broker. No, that wasn't how that worked. But what Sanders says, no, I wouldn't say they were in the tank. I'm saying a Sanders administration would have a much more aggressive attorney general looking at all the legal implication. And then he says, all I can tell you is that if a Goldman Sachs pays a settlement fee of $5 billion, yeah, um, the largest bank paying a larger fee. I think most American think, well, why do they pay 5 billion? Not because they're a heck of nice guys who want to pay 5 billion. Something was wrong there. Excuse me. If something was wrong, I think there was illegal activities. Right? It's so fucking nice. No, Goldman Sachs was allowed to pay $5 billion. Did we even? Nowhere is it calculated how much money they made, but $5 billion is probably what they have stored in their in their cushions, in the couch, uh, in the executive suite. Um, you know, so and then the Daily News goes on, well, but do you think there was a statue? Is there any statues that they can use or that they broke? Is there any? Yes. The way that they were robo signing it, the way that they were split up without the client knowing it, the documents were forged in there. Yes. And they knew it all the way up. Of course they did. They didn't care. Why would I care if I create a mortgage and I pick up the phone and I call a mortgage company in California, or the mortgage company, the loan officer at a mortgage company in California calls the loan rep and say, "Hey, I have this client, blah 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 blah," and they're saying, "Ah, well, damn man, you need about $100 or $200 in a month in income, and I can get them this better interest rate, and you can take this much more money out in cash, blah 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 blah." When I started out on day 3, I was there. And an agent for a bank that shall remain nameless. Um, the agent said, "Hey, can you just get her to say that she fucking cleans the neighbor's house or walks dogs, or either of those, and just add that $200, send in the file, and yeah, we'll have it closed in a couple of weeks." I mean, in the last mortgage company I worked in, we had people that uh, we had kids sitting on the phone that never owned a house. They were 18 years old, selling mortgages in California. All the houses at that time, the average home price was $500,000, right? So is there any statutes the prosecutor could have or should have invoked to bring indictment? I suspect there was. Yes, right. So again, basically Sanders saying nobody pays fucking $5 billion. We didn't do something, and they're lucky. They get to pay $5 billion. You know, committed tremendous amount of damage. Forget for a second here. Forget for a second that, let's say there was nothing illegal, right? But there were human beings involved in this. There were people, there were humans that took their own life because they lost their home, because they lost everything they had. But they get to pay $5 billion. $5 billion for hundreds of thousands of people's lives that were altered, made harder. Other people have to work harder, live with a lesser quality of life measured in American standards because of this, right? It has real life consequences. Consequences. And then the Daily News goes on to say, "I'm only pressuring you because you've made it such a central part of your campaign, and I want to know what the mechanics would be to accomplish it." And then I think Sanders gives the answer. I think that this should be the headline. I think this this is more important, but this is what he says. Let me be very clear about this. All right. Let me repeat what I've said. Maybe you got a quote there. I do believe that to a significant degree, the business model of Wall Street is fraud. A significant degree of the business model of Wall Street, or to a significant degree, the business model of Wall Street is fraud. It's, Bernie Sanders declared war on Wall Street in New York, right? Probably blocks away if the newspaper is not freaking on Wall Street, right? You can't say that an entire section, the biggest, the most, probably the most powerful section of our economy, um, a significant part of that business model is based on fraud, and then not do something about it when he gets into office. Like that's just not possible. So for sure, for sure, he will do something with Wall Street uh, when he gets in. He's certainly going to push his executive powers to the limit. That's my belief. He put down the gauntlet in that answer. That is certainly also my belief. Uh, no doubt. And then he also, I mean, I could go on about this. It's a really, really, really a, a good interview. Uh, he also, makes Sanders makes the observation that uh, you know when a significant degree of Wall Street is on fraud, when the top in our society uh, is building their wealth and living their lives built on cheating, right? I mean, I, I'm not special. I haven't worked for in any dirtier part of any industry than anybody else. But that seems to be my experience is that uh, trying to get away with stuff, either get more for less than agreed upon or whatever, is a national pastime in America. And that's from the top down, but it starts at the top, right? And Sanders just points that out, and he does it very well. Uh, you know, it just he draws the parallel, right? The 10-year-old kid, he looks up and says, "Damn, man, this is what's going on. Then I'm going to do it too." And I think it's called the broken window theory or something like that. But certainly, um, that I like that part of the interview, and I mean, like I said, in the mortgage industry, uh, nobody was very very few. I mean, yes, the things where people would exaggerate or lie on their income, uh, uh, or exaggerate on their income. Um, Obviously were uh, were were part of it, but let's be clear, the mortgage companies were fleecing the homeowners, right? Uh, they were they were making money on the front end, and then you would make money on the back end, meaning you would sell people at a higher interest rate than what they qualified for. If you did that, you would get a commission from the lender, right? And then there would be all kinds of fees on there. Um, I think the first mortgage company I worked for, the owner there had $4,500 in fees that went to the house before I even made a dime. Right, the $4,500 added on to the the loan of your house, so taken out of your equity, and that's before I made a penny. Right, so that was um, the same thing in the car industry. It wasn't just about, here, this is what you qualify for. This is your car. Let me get in. Let me get you the best deal. What does it matter? No, because it's all about, we're all trying to get one over on each other, and the whole society is structured like that. It seems to me. But I had a strange travel, right? But I mean, damn, I remember. Um, Let me put it that I don't want to name any names or get anybody in trouble, although probably none of these people are around anymore, or few, or certainly not working. But in the 80s, my family was engaged in the garment industry in New York, producing goods, certainly not in America, and getting it in here and then selling it to the big box stores here uh, in America. And the buyers in New York for these big box companies would expect the salespeople for the manufacturers to meet them different places, restaurants, so forth and so on, with little brown bags full of crisp $100 bills, 25, 50, $75,000, and it would mean nothing because they would make so much on the other end. But that's not playing by the rules. That's not fair competition. That's not right. It's not fair. Is that, and it wasn't even legal, I'm sure. But, so yeah, it's an American pastime, and it has become, and that is a top down thing. Then after that, um, the Daily News tries to get Sanders to impugn uh, her trustworthiness or her integrity. And so when I say her, I mean Hillary Clinton. Um, Sanders gives, a version of the same answer that he's given every time. It's up to the voters to decide. Uh, but I mean, can we stop asking him that question? Really? Does anybody think that Sanders would be running for president if he believed that um, there was anybody else running that would be a magnificent president and would take the country in the direction that he thought that we needed to go in? So, of course, he doesn't think Hillary Clinton uh, has the qualification that the country needs now. Just before I went on here, uh, apparently Hillary Clinton this morning at some point said that he's not qualified to be president. And at a rally somewhere, Bernie Sanders said the same thing, that he did not believe that Hillary Clinton was qualified to be president, right? So it's really some silliness going on there from both campaigns. I think it's stupid, but whatever. Couple of things that came out in the interview that I didn't know about Sanders. So apparently, when he became um, um, so what we're experiencing right now is we're experiencing Sanders political revolution 3.0. And what I mean by that is, and it came out in the interview, and I did not know this, that when Sanders became the mayor of Burlington, there was some opposition to the things that he and a majority of the citizens wanted. So he didn't apparently get people with him in the council that supported his agenda. So what he did was he mobilized the citizens outside, so the citizens of Burlington, to put so much political pressure on, yeah, political pressure on the other township members that he uh, got his agenda through. So let's call that Sanders' political revolution um, 1.0. The next time is during a massive onslaught on Social Security by the Republicans. He founds the Social Security caucus, and during the onslaught, when they're trying to make cuts to Social Security, when they're trying to privatize it, I'm not sure if you guys remember that during the George W. Bush presidency, the way things move so fast, one can easily forget. And he mobilizes seniors to uh, call in and remind their representatives that they also vote, and they certainly vote on the issue of Social Security, right? There's certainly no doubt about that. Yeah. So, so he's practiced. He's done it before in Burlington. Did it with the Social Security caucus, and he's now doing it again uh, with all of us and his political revolution to change America into to a kind of nation, right? Um, so then they moved on to what I thought really was the best part of the interview. And I thought that Bernie Sanders knocked it out of the park. Um, and it is the part of the interview that turns or that discusses the Middle East. So the first question they do is so I want to focus you on some international issues, starting with Israel. While speaking forcefully of Israel's need for security, you said the peace will require an end to attacks of all kinds in recognition of Israel's right to exist. Just to be clear, does that mean recognition of Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state? I mean, are we freaking kidding me with this, right? Are we really asking the first Jewish candidate to run whether or not he recognizes Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state because he wants a different approach to the peace process? He wants a more, um, oh, Reagan keeps flipping around in there, but obviously, I mean Carterish approach to the Middle East and the Middle East process, and I think Carter did pretty well, right? I mean, as I remember, Beanie, Carter, Arafat, whatever, not Arafat, but what was it? Mubarak, chicken hands, right? Remember that picture? Everybody loving Israel, everybody recognizing Israel. He did a good job, right? And of course, Sanders says, of course, uh, you know, and it's just a really really stupid question, and like I said, this is the part of the interview that just like made me look up who owns, who owned the newspaper, and that made it more gave it more sense. Uh, One of the questions that kind of illuminates that for all of us is the question where they say, okay, you've called not just for a halting of construction of so-called settlement on the West Bank, but you've also called for pulling back settlements, just as Israel's did in Gaza. Describe the pullback that you have in mind. First of all, what the hell does he mean by so-called settlements? Right? What are you kidding me with this? How is it so-called settlements? Uh, Israel was granted its existence by a decree from the United Nations. Uh, it established borders, and within those borders was Jewish state. Outside those borders, not. Then we've been trying to create a Palestinian state, but you keep encroaching in and setting people up because why? Because you, when the wall fell down, had a mass importation of Eastern European Jews. By the way, so if you are like I was 10 years ago or whatever, uh, still a supporter of Israel in a way where you think that the state of Israel is that they're kind of like that East Coast New York Jew. They're pretty liberal. They're kind of like us. Um, no, in the 80s, after the wall fell, like I was beginning to say, Israel imported a massive amount of Eastern European Jews, and they need somewhere to put them. This is why there's such a pressure on building these uh, uh, settlements, as they call them. I would call them encroachments, but um, uh, but 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 you know, Sanders answered it perfectly. But I have to just say, I mean, it really is boggles my mind that we can't in America have a real discussion. And here we have a Jewish man, Bernie Sanders, uh, running for president, and because he has a measured approach, he doesn't believe that Israel has a right to act in a way that's not above and beyond approach. Because no matter what you believe, let's make it clear, we play they we placed some people there, or they placed themselves there. They pushed out another group of people that was already there. We gave them the land because we were guilty that 6 million Jews were slaughtered in German concentration camps, and we knew about it and we didn't do it. Right? So that's why the state of Israel is there. Uh, they talked about Uganda, right? Remember? And if you don't know, look it up. But Uganda was suggested as a place for Israel to go, right? The Daily News goes on. No, but you are president. You will, I assume, become deeply immersed in the attempting the peace process. I don't know. I actually read that the way that it is, but I assume that's something. Sanders says again. I'm reading the transcript. I didn't write it down. And where you start the negotiation is important. I was talking about something different, though. Expanding settlement is one thing. Coming into office as president, who said as a baseline that you want Israel to pull back settlement, that changes the dynamic in the negotiation. And I'm wondering how far and what you want Israel to do in terms of pulling back. Is another question they come with. And I don't understand that again. Get the fuck out of the uh, 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 what we call the occupied territories, Gaza and the West Bank. Get out. Get the people out. Leave the houses intact. That would be nice. After all the destruction and all the houses that you have destroyed, What the hell do you mean? And what is this fucking litmus test on Israel? Like it's gotta stop. I love Israel. Nobody loves Israel more than me. Nobody, right? That was a bad Donald Trump impression, but let's be clear. It's not that. I mean, I love New York, liberal Jew Israel, right? I don't like this Russian conservative uh, stoning people and spitting at them if they drive on the Sabbath, and you can't talk about fucking talk. Where is the outrage in Republican world about the no-go zones in Israel on the Sabbath or no drive zone? Where's the fucking outrage about that? Instead of the Muslim quarters they try to make up that there was no-go zones in Denmark and other places in Europe. I mean, are you kidding me with this? So I wish Sanders, but he can't be that forthright because he's running for president. But I do wish that uh, he had been more forceful and just said, "Yeah, fucking what is 1964, 1954, 1954 borders. Move the fuck behind that. Leave what you built, and then take down the fucking walls and the embargo, and that's what we're talking about. That's what it takes to get anywhere. It's not it's not freaking rocket science. But I really appreciated that Sanders stood up and didn't back down on Israel, because you know how freaking sensitive uh, that subject is in 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 America, right? It is unbelievable. Can't it's unbelievable we can't have that a better discussion on that. Another story that kind of caught my eye is, we're talking a lot about super delegates, and when people, you know, come to me and they say, hey, what the hell, what are we going to do? Sanders, might win, or will win, but he might lose because he doesn't have the super delegates, and the super delegates will um, decide and decide the election, and against a majority vote, or a majority delegates. A couple of things. So we don't have a democracy, right? We live in a republic. So the popular vote is not. Yeah, it's cool to say that you win by popular vote, right? But even in the congressional election that we supposed midterm congressional election that we supposedly lost, right? There was like 2 million more votes for Democrats than there were for Republicans, but we still lost a bunch of House and Senate seats. So, uh, you know, uh, we should be used to not, to the popular vote doesn't matter. I understand, so we can't get mad about that. Um, what I do think should matter, and what we should look at it is, what are the states that, if it's close, what are the states that each of the candidates want? And then, the Hillary supporters going to say, yeah, but you're only going to say that because, Bernie Sanders won more states where we win traditionally, Democrats win traditionally. And I would say, no shit, Sherlock. That would be important, right? It would be important that that we uh, elect the candidate that wins the states that we traditionally win, right? And so I don't know, but this story caught my eye because, as we all know, or I think that many of us know, is that Hillary Clinton was out lobbying the superdelegates uh, a long time before I think she even declared. Uh, what I did not know is that apparently 33 states um, signed a deal with Hillary Clinton and the DNC where Hillary Clinton, and the story is on Counterpunch, and you really should go read it. Um, but basically, um, it goes like so. The deal between the DNC, the state, local Democratic Party, and the Hillary Clinton um, two super PACs is that a single donor could give $10,000 a year, normally to, or he can give $10,000 a year to each of the states that signed up with Hillary Clinton. That could legally, so he could legally, and there's nothing, this typical, right, uh, Clinton-esque, right? There's nothing illegal, but you're freaking skating up there. And if you're not skating up there, you're certainly not living by the letter of or the intent of the law. You're living by the letter of the law, which is legal, but, whatever. So they basically funnel money uh, through from the big donors in all the different states. They give $10,000 there, so they're not just limited to one. So they give to all of them. That money goes into the DNC, and then the DNC then gives, and then whatever from each of the states. Hillary Clinton's campaign uh, receives, I think, $2,700. Clinton's campaign got the first $2,700. The DNC gets the next $33,400. Right. Um, with that scheme, the Hillary Victory Fund raised over $26 million. $26 million. So we're certainly not talking peanuts, are we? We are talking a few dollars here. The money was either transferred to the Hillary for America or Forward Hillary PAC and spent directly on the Hillary Clinton campaign, often paying the salaries and expenses within those groups, or it was moved into the DNC or another Clinton PAC. Some of it was spent towards managing the Hillary merchandise stores where you can buy Hillary t-shirts and hats. The article does not provide proof that there's a quid pro quo, right? That basically these state, local, the state parties, many of them are not, they don't have a lot of money. They certainly don't have access to the rich and famous people that Hillary Clinton does. So, this wasn't, I see it from their point of view. This was a way for them to get some money. Uh, what the article on Counterpunch is insinuating, but does not provide proof of, and that there's a quid pro quo. Meaning, no. So you can see all the super delegates have pledged for Hillary Clinton, but what is being asked and what is interesting is, are those super delegates from those 33 states locked in? I mean, are they now put in a situation? Are they now in a situation where they can't change? Let's just say for the hell of it that the Hillary Clinton campaign collapses, that Bernie Sanders wins New York and California and the rest of the states with a margin large enough for him to uh, equal or beat Hillary Clinton in pledged delegates. But she wins because she has the other ones. Let's say that let's say that all the super delegates from states that did not sign up uh, to this scheme, funneling money between between the very rich super donors the state party apparatus and the DNC, let's say that all the states that have super delegates from the states that didn't participate, they leave Hillary Clinton, but the super delegates from the 33 states that did pledge and did partake is enough for her to still win the nomination. That will be, I mean, a lot of things have to fall into place for that to happen, but it is certainly interesting. By the way, real quickly here before we end, the Democratic Party in Virginia, 43,000 plus. I'm just going to say the whole thousand number, but it's always more than that, right? Maine Democratic Party, 59,000, almost 60,000. Democratic Party of Arkansas, 63,000. India Democratic Congressional Victory Committee, 64,000. Democratic State Central Committee, Louisiana, 64,000. Democratic Party, North Carolina. Uh, what? Oh, Wyoming, West Virginia, Rhode Island. These are all 64,000. Missouri, Minnesota, Michigan, Idaho, Georgia, Massachusetts, Tennessee, South Carolina, Oregon, Montana, Mississippi. These are all the states receiving $64,100 for participating in this thing. Utah, Ohio, Colorado, Nevada. Oh, way back a little bit. uh, Ohio 66, Colorado 66, Nevada 66, Florida 66, Texas 69, Pennsylvania 70, New Hampshire 74, Oklahoma 140,000, Wisconsin 207,000. She lost anyway. Um, DNC Service Corporation 2.2, and Clinton Hillary DC presidential whatever 4.4 million. So the interesting thing, as I said, the article is on Counterpunch. Go read it over there. But what about those super delegates? Are they locked because of that money? Will they be able to move? Is anybody going to ask about it? I don't know. I hope somebody will. I would have gone in, but we're kind of running over a little bit, and I'm sure you guys are getting tired of listening to me. Um, but I would, damn, Krugman really, 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 really wants a job in the new administration, doesn't he? And he wrote an opinion called "The Shadow of Smear's Past," and it is just an absolute wonderful example of an artful smear, and trying to play uh, African Americans out against whites, and by whatever. It is just uh, unbelievable, um, that anybody from the Clinton campaign dare to say that Sanders, uh, in any way, shape, or form, has started by going negative or started going negative. The Hillary Clinton campaign was negative from the beginning, as I think I said earlier today, with first ignoring, ridiculing, then he wasn't, he didn't have a civil rights history, or fighting for civil rights history, or that was downplayed. Then he was a misogynist. Then he was just irrelevant. Then he was too old. So we had ageism. When you just everything has been thrown against him by the Clinton campaign. That is before today, where apparently he said that she is not fit to be president because of the money that she has taken. So I think that is it for today. Thank you for watching. Wonderful of you to be here. Um, Hopefully, I will have the live calls up and running. Would love for you to participate. Thank you again for watching. Have a wonderful evening. Take good care of yourself.